jump in, but let me begin at the beginning. I have been a member of the Presbyterian Church since the date of my baptism in 1927. That took place in the Third Presbyterian Church in Kansas City, Missouri, which incidentally no longer exists and was given over to a charity in that neighborhood. It was there in the days of my youth that I learned the value of people coming together and addressing that issues that confronted the congregation and those that generally confronted the society in which we lived. I also learned another important value of allowing people of different opinions to be heard. We didn't always agree, but we always were able to respect our differences. As a theologically conservative congregation, we had our biases, especially regarding race relations. The term Zionism seldom entered our discussion, except when singing that old faithful hymn, "We are marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion." I don't know if anybody here remembers that particular hymn. My first indirect encounter with the Jewish problem came when I took a part-time job after classes, working in a munitions factory in Kansas City and as a high school student in the 1940s. A Jewish lad in high school was a classmate. For the most part, we got along, but there were times when he seemed over-aggressive, and I later learned it was connected to the treatment of Jews in Germany during that period. An older gentleman, a member of the Jewish neighborhood where I lived, took me to work in his car. Occasionally, he would refer to the conflict in Germany. These two experiences were the sum total of what I knew about the Jewish struggle for a homeland. My first direct encounter with the issue came after my wife and I were commissioned by the Presbyterian Church to serve in Lebanon. That was in 1953. We were assigned to teach in the mission schools in Sidon, 15 miles north of the border of Israel. It was there that I heard firsthand stories from my Palestinian students and faculty colleagues concerning what had happened in 1948. These students lived in a Palestinian refugee camp some 10 miles from the school. During the 10-year period that we lived in Lebanon, we became more aware of the tensions that impacted social life in Lebanon and the whole of the Middle East generally, as a result of the creation of the State of Israel. For the most part, the Presbyterian community offered its services in aiding understanding and reconciliation beyond its education and medical services. Many, many decades before that time, the Presbyterian Church had established schools and hospitals, the educational area, especially in the university level, universities in Lebanon and Egypt and in Turkey. My first official involvement regarding the Palestinian situation came when the United Presbyterian Church General Assembly wrote its first reflection on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 1967. From that moment forward, it took the position that the land called Palestine should be shared between two parties. It has been on record supporting that basic proposition ever since of a two-state solution and internationally recognized secure borders for the State of Israel. Each report has fine-tuned the previous ones, so I have been a part of that conversation almost from the beginning, which has issued forth in various statements, the most recent of which was the General Assembly meeting in July of this past summer. So I'm a part of that history, and I thank Dr. Braverman, who was there during that meeting and participated, as I understand, to help people understand the issues. In 1980, our church put together a report on the Palestinian problems, and I was one of the national leaders to critique that report, and we sent our comments into the national headquarters. At that time it was in New York City. And there were several drafts, and finally it came to the point where the church was ready to publish it, but it never got published. And the reason it never got published was because the Jewish community in this country brought pressure to bear by saying it was too biased in favor of the Palestinian situation. The second thing that needs to be said is that the Presbyterian Church is part of that worldwide Christian community identified as being reformed. If nothing else, this is what set us apart from Roman Catholicism of the 16th century. As you all know, John Calvin, the father of Presbyterianism, recognized the need to reform church teachings. He said the time had come to adapt and change to new conditions in new environments, and to do so in ways that retains the hallmark of the church as a community of followers of Jesus Christ. He said being reformed as the default outcome. If any of you work with computers, you know what that means. He set in the church's DNA this reformed capacity to change. Because we are reformed, we are open to further understanding and change. And because of that, we can have this panel here this morning that includes such a distinguished person as Dr. Braverman to help us rethink our relationships together. I'm grateful that the Presbyterian Church is open to change. It's not easy, and there are those who have left the denomination because of the changes they didn't like. Because that is our history, I am proud to be a part of that history. I'm grateful for our presenter, Dr. Braverman, this morning, who has recognized the core issue in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that of injustice, and has had the courage to say it, and is willing to collaborate with us and help clarify where we need to go from here. And I thank you for your participation and your support in that effort. So as we go forward, I see three things that need our attention. One is to tell the truth about what is going on in Palestine, Israel. The second thing is to not allow ideologies like Zionism, especially Christian Zionism, to distract us from addressing the core issue of injustice. And finally, to make contact with those progressive American Jews and those in Israel, and with progressive Muslims who are willing to take a self-critical and reform-minded stance in addressing the moral issues of right and wrong. I think this is a time that has come for us to work together and to make changes that are necessary for us to bring justice in the Middle East.